Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari.
Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Tagore Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirajit Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishis, the supremest human beings, unto the Goddess of Learning, Mother Saraswati, and unto the author, Srila Vyasadeva. By regular attendance in classes in Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart becomes almost completely destroyed, and devotional service to the Supreme Lord becomes established within one's heart as an irrevocable fact. We're continuing our study of the third canto, chapter 19, entitled The Killing of the Demon Hiranyaksha. We're on text number 24. What comes up? Right. Vinashastasu swamayasu Bhuyaschavraja keshavam Rasopaguhamanoham, excuse me, Rasopaguhamanomam Tadrishe vastitam bahi Vinashastasu swamayashu Bhuyascha vrajakeshavam Rashopaguhamanomam Tadrishe Vashtitam bahi Vinashastasu swamayasu Bhuyascha vrajakeshavam Ushopagumanomam Pradrishe Vashtitam bahi Please chant. Vinashastu mamayastu Bhuyascha vrajakeshavam Ashupagumanomam Pradrishe Vashtitam bahi Vinashastu swamayasu Bhuyascha vrajakeshavam Saubhagamanomam Tridvishe vashtitam bahi Vinashastu swamayastu Bhuyascha vrajakeshavam Asupakamanomam Tradvishe vastitam bahi Vinashastu swamayasu Yascha vrajakeshavam Rasupagamanomam Yadrishe vastitam bahi Vinashastu swamayasu Bhuyascha vrajakeshavam Rasupagamanomam Tadrishe vashtitam bahi. Mataji, can you see from back there? Vinashastu swamayasu Bhuyascha vrajakeshavam Vasupakamananumam Tadrishe vashtitam bahi. The synonyms: Vinashtasu, when dispelled. Swamayashu is magic forces. Bhuya, again, cha, and avrajya, after coming into the presence. Keshavam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rusha, full of rage. Upaguhamana, embracing. Amam, the Lord. Dadrishe, saw. Avashtitam, standing. Bahi, outside. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the demon saw the magic forces dispelled, he once again came into the presence of the personality of Godhead, Keshava, and, full of rage, tried to embrace him within his arms to crush him. But to his great amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms. Purport. In this verse, the Lord is addressed as Keshava because he killed the demon Keshi in the beginning of creation. Keshava is also a name of Krishna. Krishna is the origin of all incarnations. And it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, exists simultaneously in his different incarnations and expansions. The demon's attempt to measure the Supreme Personality of Godhead is significant. The demon wanted to embrace him with his arms, thinking that his limited arms, he could capture the absolute by material power. He did not know that God is the greatest of the great and smallest of the small. No one can capture the Supreme Lord or bring him under his control. But the demoniac person's always attempts to measure the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. By his inconceivable potency, the Lord can become the universal form. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, and in the same time, he can remain within the box of his devotees as their worshipable deity. There are many devotees who keep a statue of the Lord in a small box and carry it with them everywhere. Every morning they worship the Lord in the box. The Supreme Lord, Keshava, or the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is not bound by any measurement of our calculation. He can remain with his devotee in any suitable form, yet he is unapproachable by any amount of demoniac activities. Om Aganatam Barandasha Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The verse once again. When the demon saw the magic forces dispelled, he once again came into the presence of the personality of Godhead, Keshava, and, full of rage, tried to embrace him with his arms to crush him. But to his great amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms. This is a very vivid description of what is going on during this fight. This particular chapter is the battle, the killing of Hiranyaksha. Earlier we heard about different ways in which Hiranyaksha tried to battle and harm Lord Varaha. He came at him with his mace, and it's stated that Lord Varaha, with his left foot, kicked out the mace from his hands. And Hiranyaksha got even, more furious, and he picked up the mace and he came charging at him. And it says that Varahadev just picked up the mace and threw it as if Garuda was to discharge a snake. And he came at him with a trident, and the Sudarshan cut the trident into pieces. And then he tried different types of mystical powers of, all the last few verses discuss these, different things were happening in the universe. It was kind of disgusting of what was taking place. But Lord Varahadev was withstanding all of this. And now we see completely frustrated Hiranyaksha. He tried with his arms to basically grab a hold of the Lord and crush him. They call it a bear hug. You grab him and you just squeeze as hard as you can. So this was his idea, was he was just going to grab him, embrace him, and then just basically crush him with his own personal strength. And then to his amazement, as he went to grab him, he was no longer there. He was standing outside, completely baffling. And we can draw a lot of parallels to this, right? Right away, we may think about the story of Mother Yashoda trying to bind her beloved son, Lord Damodar, Lord Krishna. She was trying to wrap ropes, which were an extension of her arms. If she could have her arms around Krishna and keep him there, but she had to be inside cooking for Diwali festival that was taking place that night. So she had to use these ropes, which were an extension of her arms. And despite all her attempts, she realized that she was always a little bit too short, 2 inches or 2 fingers too short. So what we learned from the Damodar Leela, what we're learning from this, which is a different mood altogether, because this is a fight, that wasn't a fight, that was actually a parental exchange. This is a different rasa or Leela that Varahadev is experiencing with Hiranyaksha. But the principle is the same. Through our strength, through our powers, through our intellect, through our scientific advancements, we are unable to bind Krishna. We can't approach Krishna. We try to study, we try to understand, but we have to get to the point of understanding that Krishna is achintya. He is inconceivable. And when we start with the platform that Krishna is inconceivable, then we can begin to say, how can we conceive of the inconceivable? How does Krishna make himself available? How does God make himself available? Although inconceivable, how does he make himself available so that we can have a relationship with him? Srila Prabhupada starts off the verse discussing Krishna is addressed as Keshava, because he killed the Keshi demon, and that Keshava is also a name of Krishna. So Keshava, one meaning of Keshava means one who has long, beautiful black hair. So this is the name of Krishna, also a name of Lord Vishnu. Very strong, powerful vision of the Lord with beautiful, long black hair. He's also known as Keshava because he killed the Keshi demon in Krishna Lila, another demon that the Supreme Lord killed. Keshi was a horse. He was a horse demon. And he was an associate of Kamsa and he was deputed by Kamsa to go kill Krishna. He was one of his agents. And he transformed himself into a horse. And he was a really big, powerful horse. And horses are known for their vanity. They're very beautiful. In fact, one time Srila Prabhupada, he asked, what is the most beautiful animal? And devotees were giving different, the cow, because cow is most beloved to Krishna. The peacock, because the peacock is dancing. Prabhupada said, no, it's the horse. The horse is the most beautiful animal. You can see they're very strong. Their legs are very, they're beautiful mane. And they're known as they have these pageants with horses. And they raise horses, they groom horses. So Keshi appeared, and when he came into Vrindavan, he created such a big disturbance. Squealing and howling, stomping his hoofs on the ground, forming clouds of dust. A very huge, big horse. It says that his legs were like stone when they shook the earth when he walked. And this created a big disturbance in Vrindavan. And Krishna, right away, he knew that this horse was a demon and that came to challenge him. So Krishna was up for the challenge and said, let's go, Keshi, come on. You came here to challenge me, we'll fight. And right away, despite being such a big horse, appearing externally much bigger and stronger than child Krishna, Krishna grabbed him by the legs, spun him around, and threw him 100 yards away, immediately knocking out Keshi, and he laid there unconscious. But just as Hiranyaksha, he gathered himself, got more furious, and said, okay, now I'm really going to come at you. So again, kicking up clouds of dust, making really obnoxious noises and sounds, he came charging at Krishna, mouth wide open, ready to trample him. You can imagine if you've ever been next to a horse and you had a child. I mean, if the horse just kicks you, I mean, you're through, Some people lose their lives, even adults, by getting kicked by a horse, or even thrown by a horse, or trampled. They're big, strong animals. And this was an exceptional horse. And with his left hand, Krishna put his hand right through the mouth of the Keshi demon, knocking out his teeth. And it's described that his mouth, his arm was like a hot rod in the mouth of the Keshi demon, which began to suffocate him. And his eyes started bulging, and his body started convulsing and shaking. And it's stated that he started passing stool and urine, and just, completely his life air just left him. And the demigods are looking on, the residents of Vrindavan are looking on, completely in amazement. What just happened here? But the description Srila Prabhupada gives in the Krishna book is that, Krishna acted like it was no big deal. He brought his hand back out and then went on with his business, So for the Supreme Lord, these are no big things, but we get amazed by them because they're inconceivable to us. So Krishna is known as the Keshi demon. And this Keshi demon, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes about the demons of Vrindavan and Mathura and what they represent as different anarthas. And this Keshi demon represents vanity, false ego, the pride of accomplishing, wealth, good family, and thinking that this is our qualification in life. So we can learn from this, that, from the Keshi demon, how Krishna ultimately defeats our pride. And we also see in this pastime, the pride of Hiranyaksha is being exposed. Most powerful demon in the universe, most powerful controller in the universe, controlled the demigods. He was controlling the climate. He was controlling the orbit, the sun. I mean, he was powerful. But his pride was being put in check by a boar, which was seen as one of the lowest of the animals. So, obviously, not just a boar, it was the Supreme Lord in the form of the boar. Srila Prabhupada, in this purport, he says, the demon wanted to embrace him with his arms, thinking that with his limited arms, he would capture the absolute by material power. He did not know that God is the greatest of the great and smallest of the small. So we also try to capture the absolute. We try to make Krishna our maidservant. Krishna, please give me this. Krishna, here are my orders for you. Krishna, I have all these desires that you are to fulfill for me. We try to bring Krishna down to our level and make Krishna our servant. We also try to measure Krishna. Srila Prabhupada states in this purport here that Krishna can appear as the universal form, meaning that the universe, scientists are always trying to measure what is the beginning of the universe, what is the end of the universe, how many light years in distance is the universe. And this they can't actually come to an actual measurement. They try to understand through their measurements, how is it that this creation came into being? How did life actually assemble and come together? And they put forth theories and conclusions. With their mind and their material senses, through empirical knowledge, they try to understand the limits of God, try to capture him or approach him in that way. And to that, they remain baffled. And then Srila Prabhupada goes into the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Despite our attempts to try to search for Krishna, that Krishna has no boundaries. He can also appear in a box. Srila Prabhupada uses this word, he appears in a box, meaning a deity. So we wouldn't necessarily say a box when describing the deity. But the point is here, that Srila Prabhupada is making, is that it appears that there's some limit. Where the universe is unlimited, right? We can't measure the ends of the universe. But when we look at the deity, we can say, okay, how big is the altar? We can take a tape measure and measure the altar. We have to measure the deity in order to, buy dresses for the deity. When we make garlands for the deity, they take out a measurer to say, okay, we have to make it this long. Right? So it's perceivable to our senses, in which we can measure, how big it is. But this Supreme Lord, who is inconceivable, unmeasurable, becomes measurable, and it's the same Supreme Person. And that is bewildering to a person. How is this possible? How is it that the unlimited inconceivable can become approachable? So some people question this. And they say, Shishi Gaur Nitai ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Shishi Radha Sharad Bihari ki jai. They question this. And they say, God is not just here in the temple in the deity form. God is everywhere. And to that we say, that is true. But we can have a relationship with God directly in his deity form. And that's why the deity form is manifested by the Supreme Lord for our benefit. So that we can serve Krishna with our material senses in a very tangible way. The beautiful form of Radha and Krishna, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. They were invited to come and preside here, to receive our worship for our benefit. Now, people say, well, God is not stone or wood or metal. You can't limit God to just being in a box. Why say God is just here when God is everywhere? Well, God, if he is unlimited, without any boundaries, then you can also say that you can't say that he can't limit himself to the form of the deity. He can't appear. Why can't he? If he chooses to, he's free to do anything and everything he wants. Another aspect of Krishna is that he's Swarat. He's completely independent. When Hiranyaksha tried to bind him, he's not bound to what Hiranyaksha wants. And therefore he was able to escape. He's not bound by the laws of material nature. He's completely independent. And that's another quality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, so in the deity form, he's completely independent, but he appears in front of us to receive our worship. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a mailbox, another form of box. And he's given the example of the Lord appears in a box. He also gives the example of a mailbox. So a mailbox, if you take a letter and you want to send it to another destination, if you take it to a box that says U.S. Postal Service on it, and you put it in, it's authorized. And that mail, if it's stamped, will then go to its destination. But if you take it to another box, just a regular box, create your own box, and put a letter in it, it'll just sit there. And you use this example with deity worship. Right? So you just can't take any stone, wood, piece of metal, and then just start worshiping it. It actually has to be authorized. What does authorized mean? You have to invoke the spirit of Krishna, pray to Krishna, ask Krishna to reside, and then you have to worship Krishna with your love. And what we find is that when you do this, when you begin this practice of bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, and serve Krishna with love, Krishna, who is unbindable, unapproachable, completely independent, actually he becomes bound by his devotees' love. And everything that the scientists are searching after, everything that the materialists are searching after, trying to conquer, understand, and approach God, but are unable to, the simple devotee is able to do so. Krishna says, if one offers me with love a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. Right? So from this pastime, we can see from Hiranyaksha that he's trying so hard. And Krishna is just he's beating him at every single point. And this understanding should bring us to the point of surrender. Krishna, I can't do it my way. I can't get to you my way. I have to do it your way. And therefore we begin to follow. Begin to follow Krishna's instructions in the form of the spiritual master. We get a chance to know God. And the interesting thing is, when we approach Krishna through the right channels, through his pure devotees, we actually see that Krishna reciprocates with us. If we don't, Krishna is free to reciprocate or not. He's independent. And we see that sometimes. Some people will come before the deity, or they'll be chanting the holy names, or they'll be listening to Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna really speaks to that person in their heart. They have a life-changing experience, or they have a very profound understanding and realization. We see that sometimes. People are in kirtan, they say, wow, something happened to me. I really felt the presence of God. Or they hear something from the Srimad Bhagavatam, they say, that made so much sense to me. I was waiting for it. I don't know what just happened, but I feel awoke now. Or they stand in front of the deity and they feel that, they feel Krishna's presence has come over top of them. And this is real. But then you have some people that say, I felt nothing. They just kind of stand and go through the motions. They feel nothing. And there's one time we were standing in kirtan, this was many years ago, and the devotee was standing in the back like this. And he was chanting, he's in the back, Sometimes we see people, they stand in the back like this. And His Holiness Chandramali Maharaj, he went and he grabbed the person's arm and he unclasped it and he raised it up like this. He says, you have to expose your heart to Krishna. You can't keep it. You can't hide your heart. You have to go before Krishna and open your heart. And this is a form of letting go, otherwise known as surrender. So we can go before Krishna, and sometimes Krishna reveals what we need to know before him. Sometimes he doesn't, because he's free to interact with anybody, the same Lord, with different people in different ways, based upon their desire. Okay, we'll stop here, see if there's any comments or thoughts, questions. Thank you. Krishna. Yes.
Prabhuji, I wanted to ask how we can distinguish between whether Krishna is giving me this thing to do or whether this is my own mind's new product that my mind is setting to. How did you distinguish between Krishna's voice and our mind's voice?
Okay. How to distinguish between Krishna's voice and our own voice, right? Yeah, it's a common question, especially when you talk about, having a spiritual experience, right? So I talked at the end about chanting the holy names, listening to Shastra, doing devotional service, as well as, being in front of the deity. Sometimes we actually get communication from Krishna. And we have to be careful that we're not making things up in our mind and saying, Krishna is telling me to do this. Krishna, so we have to be careful about that. There's a saying that the jail is full of people whom God told to go kill people. So people say, well, God told me to do it. So the jail is full of those people. So obviously that's not correct. So from a philosophical point of view, we have to make sure that what we're hearing is from, obviously, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. They're the three checks that we compare our understanding and realization to. Is it in line with the principles of humility, of compassion? Is it in line with the teachings that we hear in the Bhagavad Gita? Is it in line with the spiritual experiences that we're supposed to experience as we surrender to Krishna? And then also, is there a feeling of satisfaction? That satisfaction you get when you feel full. And that is something that we can internally process, that nobody else may be able to understand, but there's a sense of fullness and satisfaction that one feels when the connection is made. And then sometimes there's a feeling of dissatisfaction, of unfulfillment, when it's not there. And when our mind is just kind of concocting things, or we want something to be true, so we make it true in our mind and say, well, Krishna is telling me this. Well, if we evaluate our internal motivation, as well as how we're feeling internally, we should feel a sense of completeness and satisfaction. If we're not, that's one sign that we're not connected there with Krishna. If it's something extreme, always check it out. Talk to Guru, or talk to a mentor, another couple devotees, God brothers, God sisters, because you don't want to act in a way that's either whimsical, fanatical, or that would be not in line with the proper behavior of a devotee. Also, a devotee never presents themselves to be more advanced, that they're hearing from Krishna directly. Like the devotee doesn't, that's also not the mood. This is more of a personal feeling of when you serve somebody, Krishna does reciprocate. Krishna is free to reciprocate how and when he wants. But to deny that reciprocation is also impersonalism. So we're just not serving dead matter, we're serving a person. And in that relationship, reciprocation is natural. Is that okay? Mother Golokananda Priya, please.
If God is everywhere, why have to worship Krishna in the temple, in the deity form? Prabhupada said, God is everywhere, yes. But we cannot worship God everywhere, we're not qualified to worship God everywhere. So the Lord is very merciful, that's why He appeared in the Archa Vigraha, so that we can render personal service.
Yeah.
And also, you were telling me that God can be anywhere. So Prabhupada also said, if you see Krishna just like a stone, Krishna will appear like a stone for you.
Yeah.
But if this Krishna is present, like you said, the deities, we invite the deities to come and reside in the deity form.
Yeah.
So the devotee have to see it like that, that Krishna is personally present in the deity form.
Yeah.
Then Krishna will reciprocate with us. When thought comes.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And that's the way. That's the way we should think. That's very, very nicely said. Yeah.
Krishna like marble, Krishna like a stone, like a brass, like a Krishna, more reciprocate.
Yeah.
And why? Like you see, or you were telling also, we have to, whatever we do, we have to try to do is love and devotion. And Krishna will reciprocate to us, we like that.
Yeah. 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 Because you'll have people say, why are you worshiping this form? It's limited. You can't limit God to, just what you see here on the altar. And in one sense, all of God is there it's not that this is just a statue representing God. No, Krishna is personally present in his unlimited features in the Archa Vigraha. And to say that God can't do that is actually limiting God. That was one of the points I was trying to make, but maybe I didn't make it so clear. You're saying that you're limiting God by saying God can't appear in a box. God can appear in any form he wants to appear in, even as a boar.
We have to try to embrace Krishna in the inside with Krishna with us.
That's right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because he's free. Yeah. Now, this is important for us to remember. Krishna is the one that's independent. We are dependent upon Krishna, and our role is to serve Krishna. And when we approach Krishna from that perspective, from the mood of service, that we are the servants, Krishna is the master, then actually we'll find that Krishna is actually, we're not outside of Krishna, we're actually within Krishna's embrace. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I like the point you mentioned when God is moving away and even Yaksha is trying to capture. So that we have to surrender. So we are not surrendering, that's why God is not able to visible connect, devotee cannot connect. So I like that point. And I was also reflecting on this verse. Ye yada mam prapatyante tam sthate bhajam mama vaktante manusya bhakti sarvasana. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So everyone follows me in all aspects of Samudra. I think the first sentence related. So like everyone how they want to connect with the Krishna, so Krishna will reciprocate accordingly to our desires or whatever it is.
Very nice. Yeah. Prabhu just quoted the verse that as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, is it? 4:11. And in relationship to the conversation that, Krishna reciprocates with his devotees individually, person by person. So some person may feel nothing. Some person may feel, in the same temple room, the same kirtan, the same class, the same deity darshan, standing side by side. And Krishna may be reciprocating differently with each of those individual people. So this is, when we say God is a person, this is also what it means. Anything else? Thank you. Online? Let's see. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone online has any questions?
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Very nice class and nice questions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Are you able to hear the questions when they're made in the temple room?
No, when you repeat it, then we can
Okay.
hear. Otherwise, we cannot.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Indyavali. Okay. I hope to see everybody tomorrow, Sunday feast. We're studying the Shastakam, verse number 2. And also today is Sankirtan. You can make it out Rittenhouse Square, 2 p.m., 18th and Walnut Street. And also, if you want to leave from the temple and get a ride down there, we'll leave here around 1 o'clock. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.